Hello and welcome to My Mom's Basement, presented by 3Chi and Barstool Sports. It is Robbie Fox, and I am here with QT Marshall. What is going on, man? A couple of Jersey guys. I'm happy I got a Jersey guy in the building.
It's exciting. I live in Atlanta now, but it's always good to come back to the old stomping grounds in New York City. I noticed this morning everyone's in a rush. Yeah, it's just people pushing me out of the way on the street, and I got my suitcase with me. So
yeah, the city's kind of like back to how it was pre-COVID at this point, I feel like.
Well, I haven't been here since then.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah, I haven't.
It's your first time since it was crazy in the middle of COVID. You would go out on in Times Square and it would be a ghost town.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I never made it back.
Good for you.
So,
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Big show for AEW coming up though. Today, as we're recording this, it's going to be at the UBS Arena, the first show ever there on Long Island, not in Long Island. I made sure Tony Khan got that right yesterday. Can't say in Long Island; those people go crazy about you.
Like on the plane and in the plane, huh?
Yeah. Kind of the same. On the line, in the line. That's also an East Coast thing, apparently. I didn't know that till I was older, but it's a huge show. I can't wait for it. It's actually going to be my first I call it my first real AEW show because I got to go during the pandemic at Daly's Place, and they were fun, but it wasn't full crowd yet.
Sure.
So it's going to be the first time getting the full environment. And speaking of, you kind of got the full environment in Chicago when you had to wrestle CM Punk recently. What was that like?
Man, I was getting ready to go out for a commentary on Elevation, possibly to start something, and Tony pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, next week you have CM Punk." I was like, "Okay." In Chicago? He's like, "Yep." I was like, "Okay, why?" No. And he was just like, we talked about it, and this is something I think we want to do, and, it's going to be a really good thing because it's his hometown, and people hate you, so it'll be a really good dynamic, and just have fun. And I was like, that's awesome because, someone like Punk, not to get too inside, but we can just go out there and kind of wing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have a couple bullet points, and that's what I was trained to do. And I thought we'd had a really good one, and the fans really enjoyed it. And, there was some pushback, but there's always going to be pushback when it comes to me, and I kind of realized that, and I enjoy it.
Do you like that style? I talked to Punk about this style of calling everything in the back or going out there, like you said, with a few bullet points and kind of working off the crowd. Punk seemed to like that a lot better. He said he likes kind of the old school style. Do you fall on that same side?
Yeah, normally I like to put together stuff at the very end. Just like any good movie, I try to backload everything.
Yep.
This one was a little different. There's also business to be done as well, and I understand how business works. So, maybe if it were completely my show, I would have done it a little bit differently towards the end and made it a little more, my style. But also, when the crowd wants what they want, you just give it to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like when CM Punk first came. Everyone was like, oh, they're going to hit his music, and then MJF's going to come out or QT will come out. No, we're just going to give the people what they want because, that's what they want. And they just wanted him to put me to sleep. So we just kind of, we did it, So it was really cool. He was super cool about it. And, there was a lot of eyes on me for that moment. And to be able to be trusted, that's my biggest thing, I think, in AEW that I realize I'm one of those guys that you could just count on. I don't have to get in the ring beforehand and practice stuff. It's just hey, we need you to work. Okay, cool. Hey, we don't need you to work this week. Yeah. So I just always have my gear.
How does it affect, you liking the style of kind of being able to call it on the fly, do things on the fly? How does that affect your training? Because I know you train talent now. Do you kind of try to teach them to be able to do that if they have to, or are you more relying on the modern style of more let's call everything in the back?
So when we have our training classes, we do call matches on the fly.
Okay.
And we'll pair people up and we'll just say, okay, you two go 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and just have fun and see what works, see what doesn't work. And of course, you don't have a live audience, but luckily, I think I've been doing it long enough to kind of gauge what an audience would want to do. And we kind of go off of that. So it's pretty cool because there's a confidence that you have when nothing can go wrong. Because, if you've been doing it long enough, any rock star, if his string breaks on his guitar, he's going to keep going. He's not just going to freak out, you know what I mean? And because it's probably happened to him before. And it's happened to all of us where something goes wrong and, someone's not in the right spot and you just got to keep going and you can't stop. And, in the pandemic, you could. There were no fans. Just hold on, can we redo that? We can't do that now. So, and especially I wouldn't be able to do that in sold out crowd in Chicago because they would have booed me out of the building even more than they already did.
You
So
fucked up.
yeah,
You fucked
exactly,
up.
exactly. I didn't know we could say that on here, but yeah,
it's Barstool. Say
yeah,
whatever you want.
yeah. They would have. Luckily, I've never gotten one of those chants.
Never.
Yeah, not to say I've never messed up. I've never messed up to the point where people notice.
Yeah. That's a nice thing to hang
Yeah,
out on.
I try to, also the other thing is like, and this isn't a sales pitch for the school, but I also train.
Yeah.
So I don't really try anything on a live show that I don't know I can always do. There's a match that we did the other day that it's not going to air just due to storyline purposes. We filmed it dark. And one of the guys I was in there with was like, I could hit this 100 out of 100. I was like, okay, cool. And then he did it, and he just fell. And I just like, I pointed to him, and I looked at the crowd, and I was just like, all right, here we go.
99 out of 100, I guess.
I was like, and then they were like, good cover-up. I said, there's no cover-up. I just stood there and looked at him and laughed because that's what I wanted to do at that moment.
You weren't necessarily covering things up. You're kind of pointing it out.
Yeah, I was showing everyone, like, hey, this guy, he needs to go back to training. So it was pretty fun. So, yeah, like I said, there's just a confidence that you have when you're able to know you can go out there, just wing it, and go off of the crowd. Like, hey, if the crowd's cheering and I'm up, just let them fight back and then take it away. Wrestling is like it just involves a lot of human psychology. And my job, what I was taught, is to not give the people what they want. That's it. That's my only job. Just don't give them what they want. And that night they wanted CM Punk to win. It's a very easy gig if you treat it like that, and then you can add those fireworks and stuff like that. Like the Bucks are really good at it.
Oh yeah.
Their whole gimmick is like, I don't want to say that they don't use ring psychology because they do. It's just at a whole nother level. They think of stuff that like at All Out. I mean, Paul and I were talking afterwards. I would never even think of these ideas, which
Crazy stuff in that match,
puts them in like a whole nother category.
It's like the meme with like the galaxy brain at the end, like they're the galaxy brain.
Oh yeah,
Bucks.
it's absurd.
How much did the way that you were trained coming up affect the way that you actually train talent? Do you kind of try to replicate what your trainers taught you, or is it the opposite? Are you like, no, I know better at this point. This is how people should be trained.
A little bit of both. I do definitely stick to the old school psychology of, I try to teach logic. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why is like, and fans are going to hate me, we have the wrestling fan. Like I'm a wrestling fan, right? And hopefully you are. And we'll watch wrestling no matter what. It could be great. It could be terrible. We just like wrestling. Like if I have to choose between wrestling and basketball, I'm going to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
My mom, not that way, right? So I always ask the non-wrestling fan, like, hey, what do you hate about wrestling? Like, why do you think it's stupid? Or why do you think blah, blah, blah? And my brother, he's very honest with me, He'll be like, I think it's just really stupid that you, whatever, run into the turnbuckle as hard as you can. And it hurts. But then when you're in your comeback, you run into the turnbuckle like Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. And it's just like, okay, but you have to understand, like at that moment, he's so fired up that nothing can stop him, And I try to explain that to my students. Like, if you don't do what he's doing at that moment and have that facial expression, all that stuff, it doesn't translate. It literally it doesn't make sense to people. And if it doesn't make sense, as my mom would say, it doesn't make money. It doesn't make dollars, right? So, I really try to stick to that. And then, of course, sometimes I just tell them, like, also it's wrestling, so just have fun.
Yeah.
We had a match one time, and Billy Gunn was our agent coach, and he was really trying to tell us about the logic of why what we were going to do was wrong. And Cody just told him, like, hey, man, I get it. We're just going to do it. Like, it's pandemic wrestling, man. We're just out here in front of nobody. Like, don't worry about it. We're going to do this. And we did it. And, it is what it is. Like, I always say for the students, for myself, when I'm out there and if I have a coach, which we all do, don't tell us what to do. Like, let us do it within reason.
Yep.
And then explain why it didn't work or why it did work. But if you just tell us A, B, C, D, that's easy. Anyone could do that.
Yeah.
And then you can't feel it, right? Like,
kind of like paint by numbers, right? Like,
which is like
fill in. Like,
full-on wrestling school is paint by numbers. And that's the one thing that I used to really harp on. And then when Cody and I started teaching together, because he's the complete opposite.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He was like, don't get stuck in the rut of there's 4 parts to a match and blah, 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 blah. Like, sometimes you just got to just wing it and
tell a different story.
Be different. Also, if there's heat on the finish, you don't really need much during the match. if there's heat on the finish, what do you need?
It's what they'll remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I really enjoy the psychology aspect of wrestling more than anything. The moves are fun and stuff like that too. But, like Excalibur always says to me, man, I saw you do that Phoenix Splash the other day at the school. Like, how come you never pull that out? I was like, I don't know, Mark.
Phoenix Splash
Yeah,
at the school?
well, you know what it is that one time Anthony Ogogo was on commentary and he said, there's like nothing he can't do, because he was getting ready to do the factory angle.
Yeah.
And Excalibur was like, well, I'd like to see his Phoenix Splash. So I went right to the school and did it. And then I tweeted it out, and he's like, man, I didn't know you could do that. I was like, I could do a lot of stuff, Excalibur. Almost called his real name. And I was like, it's just, one, I just feel really bad to ask someone to lay down there for that,
Yeah.
And two, like, I don't want to miss it either, because I remember I missed a 450 once. And man, I almost knocked myself silly.
On it?
No, I missed it. Like, told the guy to move, and
Gotcha.
the rotation is just so fast that you have no choice but your head snaps. So I've been doing a dive and headbutt recently. I've been on a real dynamite kick lately. So I've been doing a dive and headbutt, and man, that hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just landing belly flop in
Just
the ring.
between that and then your head just smacking against the guy's chest, it's like.
Yeah.
The force, but it looks cool.
Yeah. Speaking of Cody, we kind of just talked about Cody off air.
Yeah.
And your recent escapades at Planet Hollywood.
Yeah.
You've got a pair of boots now in Planet Hollywood. How did that come about?
So, on Twitter right now, there's Walt Disney World and stuff. They're posting about it, and I always see like a wrestling fan like, oh, I guess they ran out of stars and all this stuff. And they didn't read the story. So the story is, when I was 21, I moved down to Florida to pursue wrestling, and I was waiting tables at the time, and I got a job at Planet Hollywood, and that job kind of supplemented all the way through even my Ring of Honor contract. When I signed with Ring of Honor, the money wasn't anything to quit my job about, so I moved back to Florida, and I got in trouble. They were like, hey, we can't fly you to every show. Like, this is why we hired you, besides your talent, whatever. It was also the fact that I lived in the Northeast. I was in New Jersey. I moved back for like that time period. And I told them, like, well, I'm only making X amount of dollars, and I don't have a real job here. Whereas there, I can make like $300-400 a night. And they were like, okay, well, what does that mean? I was like, that means I'll buy my flight. Like, I don't care. I shouldn't say this, but like, I was only at Ring of Honor because I was hoping it would get me somewhere else.
Yeah.
I never really bought into the full Ring of Honor experience, and I think that's because of the money that they were paying. Also,
Sounds like the circumstance had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, a lot of. So, when I thought about it, I was like, so anyway, Planet Hollywood really helped supplement that. And then I left in 2014 only because I realized at the same time I can't get stuck in the rut of the restaurant, because it's just such easy money. It's fun, party atmosphere, the whole deal. So I moved back to New Jersey, and then I kind of went all in on this whole wrestling thing. But once, the success that I've had, which isn't amazing success, but it is at the same time. Like, Cody always jokes about my mom, how he's like, man, your mom treats you like Elvis, And I'm like, well, you have to understand, Cody, like, I'm from a regular family. Yeah. Like, your whole family's famous, you know what I mean? Like, my dad's a carpenter, and my mom's like she sells furniture now. So, and she was a bartender growing up. So it's like, when I told them I was going to do this for a living, and after all these years, it actually paid off. Like, I am the I mean, not Elvis, but you know what I mean?
In
like,
your family, you're Elvis.
In my family, I'm like the guy, like, oh my God, he actually did it.
Yeah.
I have lawyers and doctors in my family, and they all laugh about like, oh, I took the easy road. I'm like, what do you mean? You're a doctor, And they're like, yeah, I just went to school, I did it, and blah, blah, blah. And I think about it like, okay, that's true. Yeah, as hard as it is, there's a lot of doctors out there. A lot more than there are professional wrestlers with, big contracts on television, right? So, so when I spoke to the people from Planet Hollywood, I explained the story, and I wanted to do something nice for them, but also get some recognition as well. And because I do have friends that still work there. So it was cool to go back there.
So it's the same one you worked at?
Same exact one. The guy who waited on us the first time we went, we had to go back because Cody's flight was late, so we had to end up going twice. Both people that waited on me, I trained to be servers.
Wow.
Yeah, and the manager.
Talk about full circle.
Yeah, and the manager who paid for our bill, basically, he was at an indie show for me in 2009. So I had a lot of support when I was there, and I always So yeah, the people that I worked with are like, oh, this is incredible. And even Punk last night we were talking about, he was like, Cliff Compton and I are friends, and he's friends with Cliff, obviously.
I used to design stuff for him as well.
Really?
Back in the day.
Yeah. So we trained at the Monster Factory at separate times, but because of the Monster Factory connection, and I guess he sent it to Punk, and Punk was just like, dude, that's crazy. Like, it's a really cool story. And I was like, I always thought when I was working there, like, man, I'm going to be like famous enough that I could put I didn't know that's all I had to do was like, hey, can I donate my stuff, But they did a really great job. They made a huge deal of it. And actually
it looked cool there in the glass.
Yeah,
all cool,
when you walk up the stairs, it's like right there.
Yeah.
And I figure, all right, well, they'll put it on the top floor away from everything. It's literally across from the Dorothy dress from The Wizard of Oz, which was like their main piece,
I was going to ask what the main piece at that point
yeah, so
was.
It was the Dorothy dress, and then they completely redesigned it. And I haven't been there until this week or this past week. When they redesigned it, because I just didn't. I never went back. So going back there and seeing everybody and stuff like that, it was really cool. And then the server was funny. I tipped him on the side. I Zelled him some money because they didn't want to put it through the computer. And he texted me back, and he was just like, hey, I didn't want to say anything, but can you watch this music video I made? And I was like, yeah, man. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't care how good this is. I'm going to tweet it out. Like, it doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? And it actually wasn't bad. So it's a catchy song. My wife and I were singing it the other day. So, yeah, hopefully, Josh, hopefully you do well.
Hell yeah. Speaking of Planet Hollywood, kind of Hollywood celebrities, another thing that you did recently, or I guess it's maybe not too recently now, it aired recently, is you training Shaq.
Yeah.
I was actually there for the Dynamite where Shaq had the match.
Oh, okay.
We did like a little segment where it was like a press conference with Jericho. We were like the journalists.
Yeah, I remember.
It was an awesome experience getting to watch the Shaq match backstage with everybody.
Sure, yeah.
And to see everyone react to it.
Yeah, he did great.
So great.
Yeah.
The table spot, everything.
Insane.
What was it like training him? Did you know from training him, like, oh, he's going to go out there and crush it?
Yeah, he was really dedicated. And they're not going to show that because I think he really wanted to protect what he did, which is great. So please don't hurt me for saying any of this. But, hopefully we're still friends. I just bought a house in the same town as him. So,
oh, nice.
But, yeah, he came by one day, and I joked with him. I said, hey, when are we going to get you in here? That's literally how it started. I'm sure he had it in his mind, and he always had that stuff with, Paul White at WWE, all that other stuff. And I just brought it up, and he was like, what do you mean? I was like, I could teach you how to do this in 10 days. And he's like, really? I was like, for what I think we're looking to do, 100%. And he got in there, and I suplexed him, right, with a crash pad. And then he was like, all right, let's move the crash pad. So then I suplexed him again. And he was like, this ain't that bad. He's like, it hurts, but it's not that bad. I said, and when the adrenaline's going, you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So
especially like a first match like that, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah. So he was, we were trying to hold off as long as we could because of, the pandemic and the crowd, all that stuff. But then one thing led to another. But like I said, he was there all the time, really paying attention to what I was saying. And, hey, try to do it this way. I mean, he powerbombed me the first time, and he dropped me right on my head. And I was like, hey, so, we had the crash pad down. I was like, hey, you're really tall. So if you don't squat down with this, you're going to dump everyone on their head.
Just like the angle.
Yeah, and I was like, and you can't do that to Cody.
No.
You can do it to me, but you can't do
yeah.
it to Cody. So, but yeah, he was really dedicated, and also he was having fun.
Yeah.
And that's more than anything.
Paid tribute to Brody in the match. That was a cool spot. Like the entire feud, it seemed like he was having fun, to be honest. Like going back and forth with Cody on TNT.
Yeah.
The basketball show was great.
Yeah, he's just
all that stuff.
He's a good dude. And then so then when they were filming Shaq Life, they were like, hey, do you want to? The thing is, when I body slammed him practicing, he did it all the right way. On the show, he didn't post, he didn't jump. So it was like, that's what we were joking about it last night.
Protecting kayfabe.
Yeah, they were like, man, you could slam anyone. I was like, no, I can't. That hurt, So yeah, it was really cool, and it was unexpected to, I got a lot of tweets and stuff, and they put a lower third for me. I mean, it was really cool. I got a lot of exposure out of that. So, I don't know what that means in the end of the day, but cool. I'm here. You know what I mean? So
it's just cool to see footage of like you wrestling Shaq of all people. Like, it's Shaq.
Yeah, like no one knew that happened because I don't. Unless it airs, I don't say anything to anybody because you always,
That's old school.
Yeah, it's old school, right? And then when it aired and then Snoop Dogg is voicing it over, like I put it out there and people were just like, all my friends from Planet Hollywood, believe it or not, like, dude, this is insane. Like
it's the perfect
body slamming Shaq
too,
and Snoop Dogg is talking about you. Like what is your life? I'm like, I don't know. I literally don't know, but I got to I got to type something on the computer, so leave me alone.
We do a show here called Coach Prime for Deion Sanders. It's
Okay.
like a docuseries about him coaching his football team and everything. And Snoop is the narrator for that as well. And there was just one day where I was like walking over and I see my friend Roan and he's writing something. I'm like, what are you writing? He's like, narration for this documentary. I said, oh, who's gonna read it? Like you?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, Snoop Dogg. I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's a better voice. Snoop Dogg is as good as you can get. Who are your favorite wrestlers to watch in AEW nowadays? Like this year, I just asked Tony Khan who he thought the breakout performer of the year was. Who would your answer be to that question?
I'm a big Jungle Boy fan.
Yeah.
If there's someone I could, and Dante Martin. He's really been able to, for someone that came in a team with his brother and just he kind of went on his own way. Jungle Boy. Like there's a lot of younger guys that I'd really like to work with and just have fun. And I don't want to say, I'd like to work with all the younger guys and get them to most of them are past my level anyway. I would just like to work with them, just to have some fun. And I got to work with Darby on Dark a couple weeks ago, and I got to work with John Silver, who's in the main event, tonight.
Can't wait for that.
With Bryan Danielson. So, there's a lot of the younger guys, and then of course, I'd love to wrestle Chris Jericho. That's like a bucket list thing. I got to wrestle Dustin.
Do you have a list in your mind of like a few people I want to wrestle before it's all over?
I do, and they're not always it's not always the top guy or the there's like Frankie Kazarian is another guy that I'd like to work with because he's just been around so long, and
it's crazy that you guys haven't.
Yeah, and it's just the style, right? Like I think we would have a really good match, and on paper the fans might, but the thing is, like, I was trying to explain this to Tony one day. We were talking about stuff and like Twitter and people being mad at me being on TV or getting a spot and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but how about the real fan, the fan that actually pays their money to come to the show? How do they react when I go out there? Because for me, it sounds like the whole crowd chants QT sucks. Maybe it's only 5 people chanting really loud like Twitter, but I don't think so. It sounds like it starts to go up and then the whole arena does it and stuff like that. So, like I said, I think getting me out there with anybody at this point is good for both of us because, the crowd's going to be into it. So.
Yeah. Is that a weird thing, like the QT sucks chance, to explain to non-wrestling fans, like you were talking about, like how much, like if an entire arena is chanting QT sucks, you must love that. That must be amazing for you.
Yeah.
But like non-wrestling fans must be like, what? You love that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then, like I said, when you actually break it down for them and kind of let them know, like I said, at the end of the day,
if you're getting a reaction.
I'm getting a reaction, and what is my job?
Yeah.
Again, just don't give them what they want. And I used to think like, my job is to do this for the baby face. And then, no, just who's the biggest heel in the world is the guy or girl that doesn't give you what you want from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
the when that makes you like have that visceral reaction,
right?
Of, like booing. And
yeah,
all
like
that
when
wrestling show.
when I wanted something for Christmas and I didn't get it, I was really mad at my mom. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? My friend just got a BMW and I don't have a car? Like, what's going on here? Okay, we'll get you a car. So it's just one of those things. And then she was a baby face. I loved her,
There you go.
So, and I invited her to Planet Hollywood because of that, you know? So, I mean, it's really fun to get those reactions because I never thought, I never thought when AEW started I'd get the chance to even be out there.
Arena too, right? Like that's got to be a different level.
Yeah.
Like in Ring of Honor on the Indies, it's one thing. When you're in a sold out arena, it's crazy.
So that was my biggest fear was I hadn't wrestled in a big arena since I was a babyface with Cody. I teamed with him. Then I did another match with like Jake Hager, and we did some dark stuff, but it wasn't like at the level. Then the pandemic happened, and I was like, okay. And then when I turned, we started going back on the road, and I remember talking to Uno about doing a match with him, and he was like, I don't have the Dark Order with me. We're going through these problems or whatever. Maybe I could work with you at the United Center. And I was like, oh, man, it's like sold out, Okay. And then I was thinking like, okay, this is the test. If we go out there and no one's into it, like we're done. I'm dead in the water. You know what I mean? And luckily, we were one of the first matches on that Dark taping that had 2 contracted talent. A lot of it was just, get over matches for our talent and stuff like that. And I remember going out there and the boos, and then when the Dark Order music hit, the cheers. And I remember thinking like, we don't have to do
I
anything.
was going to say, can you take a deep breath even before the match at that point? Like, oh, okay, we got him.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the things. Now I'm still learning because, with Darby was the same way, where Billy Gunn pulled me aside. He was like, hey, man, you didn't need to do that stuff in the beginning. Like, they were already chanting his name as loud as they could. What do you think you're going to do that's going to do that?
Interesting.
You might as well take it away.
Yeah.
And then bring it back. And I was like, he's like, you know this stuff. I'm like, I know, but this is what we call it,
Yeah.
And Darby has to do it, so I'm not going to say no. Darby's in a pretty good spot right now, and and as much as I have a pretty good spot behind the scenes, I never use that to my advantage. So, I just try to do good business all around.
Of course. And finally, this is a question that I assume you've probably gotten before, and all the talent gets at this point in the wrestling business. But if we could open that forbidden door for you,
Sure,
and allow one person through to AEW, could be from any other company, and say, this is someone that you get to wrestle, who would you pull through?
Oh, that's good. Past, present, or no? Is it like present right
let's
now?
Go past, present, future.
Man.
I guess not future.
Yeah, future. My son, no, that I don't have. Man, so originally, like, Jay Lethal was a guy I always wanted to work with again because I thought we had really good chemistry. Now he's here, so that kind of takes away that question. Like an Okada.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Only because I throw a really good drop kick. No, and his style is it's for the Japanese style, it's still a very my kind of style.
Yeah.
So if it was like someone from New Japan, it would be him.
Psychology heavy, right?
Very.
Yeah.
And they're big on the whole callbacks and stuff like that. And,
Big time, yeah.
I think that a lot of the problems with wrestling today is a lot of people do callbacks and no one knows what they did before that. Like on indie shows, you see all these guys doing 100 false finishes. And I joke about it, like with my students, like you can't get someone to bite on a false finish if they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
If they don't know that that's your false finish.
That's one of my pet peeves in wrestling is when someone will do a move that's never finished a match,
right,
and it gets a 2 count. They do the
meme face.
Oh my god!
They do that face,
yeah,
right? Yeah. That's why, like, when I work, when we go over false finishes, I'm like, yeah, I'll roll you up and put my feet on the ropes. And they're like, what do you? I'm like, everybody understands that, and if we do something right before that, some of the best false finishes I get are like, I go for the diamond cutter and they hook me in a backslide, or
the roll-ups.
The roll-ups,
yeah, right?
Yeah, because you get them unexpected, and that's kind of how wrestling works now.
Do finish matches.
Yeah, especially nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Like the schoolboys, I'll trade the diamond cutter for the schoolboy any day of the week, So yeah, I think that, and then like I said, if of all time, Shawn Michaels is someone that I really try to watch and learn from and stuff like that, and then
Do you like the first half of his career or the second half of his career better?
As a fan, I really enjoyed the first half, but that was because I was a child.
You were,
I was
a
like,
fan during that time.
I was into Shawn. I mean, I dressed like him. My dad thought, this is kind of strange, what's going on?
The assless chaps, yeah.
But then my dad, I had one of those hats with the zebra print, and I took another hat that had like the ponytail attached to it, and I ripped it off and stapled it to I was just in my own world.
No, I'm with you. I was Sean for Halloween. I had the muscle suit. I had my mom drawn.
Oh, there you go.
Tattoo,
Yeah. So you know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you real quick. I went to go meet him on Route 17 in Ridgewood at a car dealership. And my dad, whatever happened, I if he's watching, he was late. And we got there, and there were way too many people. And I remember like being very upset and probably crying. So he took me to the Meadowlands that night, and we bought tickets up top. And Shawn Michaels in the main event. I want to say against Vader, could have been against Goldust. Long story short, my dad told me years later, like, hey, when you were younger, you were like really upset about this whole Shawn Michaels thing, and I was really concerned at the time. He's like, but then I watched him, and I realized, like, oh my God, like this guy is an incredible athlete. He looks great. The stuff that he's doing, he's taking an ass kicking, and then he makes the big comeback and all this stuff. So, I think my dad became a believer.
Saw it, right?
He saw it, and then he saw why. The same reason why, like, I look at kids that look up to John Cena. I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Of course.
As a wrestler, everyone has their own takes on what a good wrestler is, but I think a good wrestler or a great wrestler is the one that makes the fans go crazy. So he's one of the best. You know what I mean? So
to this day, he came back this summer, and the reactions that he was getting were crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's just like I said, that's when we talk about wrestling at the school. When we watch matches, you can point out every little flaw that somebody had, but at the end of the day, when that bell rings at the end, and if that crowd's up or they're throwing stuff, you're doing
That's
it
what
right.
they'll remember, especially the people that are there. They'll remember going crazy
Yeah.
at that, you know, and all that.
Yeah, we make people feel a certain way, and you know, that's my biggest thing is that I try to, which I think a lot of the times the way I was taught, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not into what wrestling is nowadays, but I think that's what I try to do is just make people feel.
Yeah.
And my job is to make them feel a certain way, like when you open that Christmas box and there's a big pile of shit inside. You know what I mean? That's the feeling you should have when I win a match, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a fun ride, you know. Luckily it's just starting, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to wrap it up on.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited for Dynamite tonight, and if you're listening to this on Monday, we got Dark tomorrow. We got another episode of Dynamite coming up, so check it out.
Winter is coming. That's
Winter,
one of our biggest shows, right? You have
It'll be huge.
Hangman and Bryan Danielson, and some other matches. Whoever wins the Battle Royal tonight, the two guys that win the Battle Royal will go on next week for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. So Max might not have it after this week. So I'm excited because he always uses that ring, and I want it. So
I can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, of course, man. This was great. Thank you.